Welcome to the Daily Jump. And today I am delighted to have two professional educators to talk to us about the unique situation we are with schooling at home. Chosen to call it schooling at home because my friends who are homeschoolers have told me this is not at all what they would consider to be a homeschooling experience. In fact, all the best parts of homeschooling are taken away from them because they usually do a lot of hands-on um, activities where they go out into the community and they engage. So we wanted to explore with these two professionals what they would recommend or some advice from them given our current situation. So I just want to introduce them both and then we'll open up our conversation. The first is Satkiana Shaw, and she's physically located in Ottawa, Ontario, where she works at an elementary school as an educational assistant. She supports students who have special needs to be integrated into the classroom. She also runs social skills and self-regulation groups to support the social emotional well-being of her students. She has a long history in inspiring children through meditation and holistic lifestyle practices. She's a single parent to a sweet, wise, and aware 8-year-old boy. Also on the show today is Mark Samuel. He's physically located in Edmonton, Alberta. He is a high school and junior high school teacher and a leader in education. And he has been a leader in the field of education for the last 25 years in both Alberta and Ontario. He has taught English language arts, drama, theater production, physical education, health, social science, and even a math or science class or two. He's currently teaching grades 7 and 8 English language arts in St. Albert. So I am so delighted to welcome each of you to the show. And I am going to just start with asking Mark to talk to us about the situation where he is. And Mark, there you are. What's going on in your school and with the current situation?
Well, what's happened is, of course, we were all surprised by the situation and of the closing of schools, and it all happened very suddenly. We were in a position where teachers. It was 1 week before their spring break, the children's spring break. So we had a week to sort of work together to figure out what this might look like, and having no answers at all, really, and trying to explore what was most important for us to teach them online or through various online means, so that they weren't overwhelmed with work, especially if having to work at home independently with access to us, but still not having that one-on-one time, not able to ask direct questions in the moment, these kinds of things. So we're starting to think about what does school look like now? It's different than it was, and it started to really ask some questions about what's essential for them to know, uh, based on what we were planning to do, and also thinking about what are some of the ways that we can reinvent engagement in the classroom. So my colleagues and I were really thinking about how we can find the silver lining in this and start to explore different sorts of ways of thinking about teaching and learning.
So I'm curious, Mark, what are some of the things that you found across the board with your colleagues as the highlights that you thought were important? I'm curious what you decided to focus in on.
Well, at a junior high level where I'm teaching right now, it really was broken down into subject areas. Junior high schools, and in many ways, are mimic high schools. Not in every way, but in lots of ways they do. And so I was really uh, collaborating with my English language arts partners to think about like what are the main skills that they need to be able to demonstrate, and that will set them up for as much success as you can in the schooling process as they move on to the next level in the fall. So in terms of discrete skills, it depends on what the level is and what teachers had um, covered before and that sort of thing. So it's difficult to say. We're focusing on different characters and trying to organize interesting reading. And but I think what's I think most interesting about the conversations we're having as teachers is to think about what sort of tools we have that we weren't using in the classroom, and to think about also what sorts of processes that we could explore that have strangely have time to explore now that might be very useful for developing student creativity, for engaging in a world that is our students are digital natives, that to think about what what sort of process that we can bring into our classrooms that are kind of old fashioned, that students would already be very interested in, like video creation and this sorts of the podcasting and all kinds of things that are possibilities for kids to begin to create in their the worlds that is very familiar to them, the digital world that doesn't always, and lots of classes are different, but in the English language arts classrooms at my school anyway, where we'd have not really touched on those things before, not in any kind of deep way.
So, what are the things, given the current situation and where you're going with your students, what are the things that you're most excited about? What are the opportunities that you're seeing that, you things you wouldn't be able to do normally?
Right. I think that one of the key questions that we have to ask ourselves as educators and as parents is uh, what should what should schools look like? How should schools function? Because as you and I had chatted about before, that schooling and education are opposite things. That schooling is about a system saying this is what needs to be learned, these are the essential skills, and then we do our best as teachers to create engaging circumstances for those students to participate in those skills, participate in demonstrating their mastery, or hopefully, or at least um, some sort of um, beginning point for those skills, for as a society they said are very important. Education is the opposite. Education is comes from the word educare, which is a drawing out. So we have these kind of there's a tension between schooling and education, even though people think of them, or at least interchangeably use those words as the same thing. So what I think is the biggest opportunity right now is that as students are at home, and uh, that parents are now their primary teacher in a sense, even though teachers in schools are going to be and already have been creating materials and sending those home and trying to kind of create some sort of normalcy of the schooling process as best we can. I think that the interesting opportunity is that we can start to ask ourselves what's most important for kids to learn, and to sort of ask her questions about, well, if a kid is interested in this or that, uh, then why not let them learn that? Why not let their impulses, their own passions, their own interests, their own proclivities, their own uh, questions drive their own education? What I think is what would be a very sad circumstance is if parents feel the fear that their children will somehow be left behind, and that therefore they have to somehow recreate the classroom in their homes. And from an educator's perspective, from my experience in the classroom's not a perfect place. The classroom is not the pinnacle of education. The classroom is an opportunity for teachers and students to come together, and there's wonderful opportunities to do certain sorts of things, which I think should continue on. But I think we have this chance to rethink what the point of education really is, and whether we can, as a culture, trust, and there's great debate about this, by the way, but whether we can trust the impulses of children to learn what they need to learn at a particular moment, and then allow them to change and learn something new later on. So if parents, this is my hope, that parents can say, we can relax and say, okay, well, what do you want to learn? And also, as a caveat in this, I'll let you ask another question, or to switch to Satkiana, but to um, to really think about uh, what it is that uh, teachers can offer as an assistance to parents in pursuing the passions of the children. Because I remember reading once about a professor who took a sabbatical to be with his daughter, who was 10 years old at the time, and a very PhD and a professor for many years, and a rigorous academic. And he said that that year of just following the questions of his 10-year-old daughter was the most rigorous learning that he has ever been a part of for himself. Just to follow these questions and to see where all of these things go, that all of the things that they will need to learn are built into what they what they want to learn, right? It's already built in, so we can just relax and say, okay, this is what we can focus on.
I have a friend in Mumbai, in India, and her children go to a school that uh, apparently there's only two schools in the world that follow this particular strain of model, and that's exactly what they do. That the learning is completely built on each child's individual curiosity, interest, and then everything that they need to learn uh, comes out of, is born out of their curiosity. And I think they're in about the third year of their children being in the school now. They're definitely seeing a few gaps in their learning, and they supplement with certain things. But I think what you're imagining and dreaming about um, is interesting, and I think it serves as very good advice for parents right now who are at home with their children and trying to find a good flow with all the demands that are on their plate. So I'm going to just turn now to Satkiana to have you answer the same question that I just asked Mark, which was just to find out what's going on with your school situation and your responsibilities as a teacher.
Great. Yeah, happy to be here with you both. So, right now, our schools are closed in Ontario, all schools, and we have been called back to work as educators. So, I'm an educational assistant, and I work specifically with two particular students who have special needs who are integrated into classrooms. So, I'm not exactly sure what my call back to work looks like yet. We had a staff meeting on Monday morning on Google Meet. It's my first time. And we just talked a little bit about what our school board is suggesting. We had a forum where we were able to give our input in terms of what was we felt was most important right now as educators, and looking at, what children and families might be living right now and how we could best support in our roles. So um, I have a meeting next Tuesday as support staff. So we're a small team and we'll meet and talk. So I don't know. I mean, it could be calling and checking in with my students. I have one student who is blind, and I would love to just spend some time reading to him. So, like, one thing I've been really aware of as a parent in terms of juggling, not that I've had a lot of work from home yet, but like a little bit of time focusing on emails from school and just balancing my own needs and um, my own, I guess, commitments with what my child needs to be sort of involved in and stimulated with throughout the day and our time together. So, you know, I think personally, if I could take some time as an educator, as a support staff, to maybe check in with my students and even just read and, and talk to my once a day for half an hour could be quite adequate and could give some time then for his parents to focus. I know he has both parents are parenting as single parents, so they could each have some time to devote to something other than his needs. Uh, just as an example. So it's a time to be creative and what I'm to be more in sort of a retreat mode and with the family because we're really being called to be with each other is it's really a time of the heart over the head. I mean, it's always a time of the heart over the head, but we don't necessarily live that way in the greater scope. So right now we're really being called to cultivate more and nurture more the heart. So the fact that we've been put together in these situations as families is really asking us to connect, to make connections, and out of those connections to create something together that's going to work for the family. So maybe you're going to ask more about that. I'll bring it back to you, Rajem.
Thanks, Satkiana. And I just
Hmm.
want to pick up on a couple of things that you said there because, I think that it's more than just giving parents a break by reading to someone else's child or this child that's your student. It's enriching that child's experience at this time. Um, I just wanted to add that layer of richness to what you're offering and what other people are offering. Like that's what I found is that there's an opportunity for my child to connect and link to people that he normally wouldn't in his school part of his day, and to learn things from them that he otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity. It's just the retooling of doing that in more of a virtual environment. So, the question I want to ask both of you now is for you to talk about what your recommendations are for parents who have their children at home right now. I think it's really different from area to area what sort of resources are being provided by the children's schools. And most of what I'm seeing from my friends who've got children at home is, there's a lot of discussion about trying to figure this out and how to do it. And I think children have a lot of free time on their hand, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But just wanting to see what each of your words of wisdoms are given the situation. So, Mark, I'm going to start with you with that question.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it, for me, it kind of speaks to the heart of all of this, and I love that Satkiana said it's as a time of heart, and it really is, and really it's this question about the heart's desire, or the heart's desire. The heart wants what it wants, and can we trust our own hearts, and can we trust the hearts of children to know what they really want to learn? And so my first recommendation to parents is to let them play. Now I know there are some restrictions, of course, that because of quarantining or self-isolation or just social distancing, that playing in the normal way may be difficult. But if we figure out what, and I think it's not very difficult to do, but figure out what play really means is play for children is a constant exploration of things. So it might be that the playing is indoors or outdoors or on their own or within the family, but the idea that there can be some sort of exploration. I mentioned before the professor who uh, took the year to just ask questions with his daughter and then pursue those questions to see. We I think this is a new time for us to think about play and exploration, and to, like you said, retool the internet for what it what maybe it has become, a kind of a rattlesnake nest of social media superficiality, or inane games that are really just there to attempt to maintain people's attention in order to sell this or that. But to start to think about what are those explorations that we could have and that we could participate in, that really will spark the creativity of the children. What I know for sure in a classroom, from my classroom experience, is that if I give something that is some sort of task for children to do that has a defined outcome in it, that it has something specific that I want them to know, which is sometimes necessary, it's a particular thing or skill or what have you, is that it always takes less time than I think it will. And the thing that when they have to then create something as a different activity that they have to create, it always takes far longer than I ever thought it would. So really, for parents to have those moments where a child is engaged in something for an hour or 2 hours is a wonderful time for parents to be able to not think about, okay, what do I have to do next? What do I have to think of? What do I have to create a new thing? I have to find a new resource. That the children can have a time now to deepen their understanding about one thing. What's the one thing that they really want to know about? If it's dinosaurs or if it's how to make a YouTube video or who knows what it is. You set those kids on it, and because of their passion, they'll have a dogged determination to figure it all out and to figure out how to make that happen. And so let the play happen. Let them find some questions that they have. Now, here's a caveat about this, is that if we have students who have been going through since kindergarten, since grade 1, or first grade, if we call it in the United States, from first grade to wherever they are right now, is they're used to schooling being somebody telling them, here's what we're going to do today. Here's what I want you to do. Here's the resource. Here's the thing. Here's the process we're going to go through. That this is going to be sort of a time of detoxifying, if you will, using the metaphor of detoxifying from that way of thinking about learning. So the kids may not know what to do. They may be lost. They have no, like, they're like, oh, and they may go crazy. They may just, the behavior goes nuts, and they don't, like, because the kids don't know what to do. And they're just kind of like, yeah, but, yeah, but every day I go to school and I don't like it, but people have been telling me what to do, and they've been telling and holding my hand through this process. And now you're asking me to ask questions and just go and explore. I don't know. They may get quite afraid. So I think it's kind of a process for parents to just be able to observe that and say, oh, okay, they just need a little bit of help. They need a little bit of intervention, a little bit of a point in the right direction, just to get them going into their natural ability to explore and play.
I think that's really interesting because uh, one of the people that I interviewed, was it earlier? It was earlier this week, actually, was a mother and, well, someone in Italy, and she is, on, I think, fourth or fifth week of quarantine, and she's in a small apartment with her two little girls, and she found that each one of them had picked something specific that they were interested in and was diving into that. Very different age. I think one was 11 and the other was 7. And the 11-year-old was completely refinishing a piece of furniture, you know, and I think the 7-year-old was like imaginative play that they were engaged in, and she has a schedule for them, but she's allowing them to kind of those things that they're interested in, like you're saying, Mark. She's letting them delve into them more. So that kind of echoes off of what you're saying and what you're recommending. Satkiana, I want to turn to you, sweetheart, now and just see what your thoughts on any recommendations that you want to give to parents as they navigate this time.
Sure. hmm Yeah, I loved what you said, Mark, about, just that when children are given something creative, there's often just never enough time in a school setting. And it's so true. I see that so often, in a grade 1 class I work on, they were given an opportunity to do some collaging and they just got so into it. And when it was time to just wrap up, because it was actually the end of the school day, they were, very disappointed that they had to stop. And, you know, I've been reading a little bit on the internet, people talking a bit about unschooling as a term. And that's kind of where we're at in a sense, because it's true, we're not really homeschooling. We can't take our kids out and gather with other kids and go to a museum or go on a hike together. And we're we're unschooling. We're not trying to bring a school environment into the house either, because this is a home. This is the space of the heart in the home. So in cultivating that, yeah, the creativity is so key right now. And just giving children that space to dive into some sort of a project. And they might need a little bit of help, especially, well, actually, I was going to say, especially, are we still here? Okay, yeah, we're still here. Sorry, I just got a little message. Um, yeah, they might need a little bit of help getting started or getting some ideas generated, but this is where it can become really fun. You could have sort of like a thought generator. You just sit down and kids can draw or write if they're a bit older, some different ideas and just brainstorm together. It could be a family project, it could be a project they do on their own. Um, but yeah, just getting some ideas out and then saying, okay, well, what can we do? Like just the other day, Ishtiak and I found out, I don't know how we found this out, but we found out that you could make yogurt in our Instant Pot. So while I was having my online staff meeting, I'm like, okay, you've got the YouTube video, go ahead, go make the yogurt in the Instant Pot. And he did. And he went through all the steps, and 24 hours later, we had lovely yogurt. So these are just some ideas. And personally, I found in our household, keeping kind of a daily, starting our day with something that's mindful. So for us, that's doing some breath work and some meditation. Could be different for every family. Could be reciting a daily poem. Could be that you've created something as a family, like your family's daily, mm, not exactly mission, but your family's daily statement. And you read that every day together before you have breakfast, just something that brings you together in a more mindful way. And then having those times, obviously, like keeping some regularity, like regularly scheduled meals and within sort of a bit of a proximity of time, and keeping a steady bedtime. Um, and just these things that the child, that gives them that sense of security and helps to ground them with having a regular routine, and yet opening that space for a lot of creativity in that day. And one of the things that we're doing that we're able to still do here, is we're getting out for walks every day or every second day and we're calling them our adventure walks. And we're taking walks. We live by the river. We're taking walks by the river. And we're just discovering in a way that often we don't take time to really discover in our structured kind of lives. So those are some suggestions.
Those are all really lovely set, Kiana. I really appreciate them. One thing that I was reflecting on this morning was that I wanted to have something start a routine for our family to have almost like a closing ceremony for the day to bring us all together and to meet kind of quietly and just kind of, you know, say our wishes or say what we're thankful from the day and, just have that little connection time before we go to bed. So if that resonates kind of with what you're saying about having like an opening, I think that's a really like a mission for the day. Is a great idea.
I
I guess,
wanted to mention one other thing, if I could.
yeah, please do.
One other thing I just want to say to parents is turn off the news, turn off the TV. You know, kids are being bombarded um, with the technology and the messages of the media, and adults too. And they're like, without going too much into this, because I know it's been explored in other ways, but like the COVID-19 virus is is linked with fear. And so there's a lot of fear right now, and children are just so porous, and they just pick up on whatever the sort of atmosphere around them, whatever the energy is of the adults around them. So if we can just turn off the news and not bring that into our family life, you know, talk about the practicalities, share in a way that's relevant to what your children need to know. But instead, like, fill the day with, put on some uplifting music, do some dancing together. Things that are uplifting are what are needed right now.
Satkiana, thanks so much for those extra thoughts. And I was so impressed. There's a one of the programs that's on the iPad that Indra brought home from his school as we launched into this time of self quarantining. And it's also I think available online. Is called a program called Brain Pop, and they have a COVID-19 piece that they do, and it's very very well done. And the part that I appreciated the most of it was that it was telling the kids to walk away from the news and to limit how much they listen to it. And so I started to call it media distancing. That as much as we need social distancing right now, everybody, parents and children alike, need to be practicing media distancing. So to not plug into that constant stream, because unfortunately just the way that our media has gotten set up and how the type of stories they chase down are not of service at this time. So I really appreciate you pointing that out. And I think that's a really important thing for children and parents alike at this time, and it'll definitely help with children. We've already are a family that we don't put news on in our house. My husband and I view it on our device, so we haven't had to make a shift at all, and I'm grateful for that. So, just before we close this up, I just want to turn to each of you to see if there's any final words of wisdom that you want to share. So, Mark, I'll start with you. Any final words before we close up here?
I think that one of the most important things for parents and kids to do is just to be gentle with each other and with themselves, and that in this crazy upside down world that we're now in is an opportunity for us to rethink how things go and to be creative about what the possibilities are. Parents know their kids the best. We've seen them since they were tiny babies, and we know what they like and what they are like, and to just be gentle in the process of it and not worry about the standards are made up anyway. So it's really just to be calm, to be gentle, and to pay attention to our kids in a way that holds a space for them to figure out who they are and to reveal who they are to us as they develop. And I love Satkiana's ideas about creating a little bit of structure that kind of contains the children, but also allows them so much freedom to ask the question, "Who am I?" And they ask that question, "Who am I?" by figuring what is they love and what is they like to do and what they're attracted to. So we just let that process go so that we can kind of recreate the world. We have so many complaints. My students say, well, why do we have to learn this? What's the point of it? Why aren't we learning something we're actually going to use? And now's the perfect time. Their wishes have been granted, and now they have the opportunity to do that very thing as much as they like. So let's all be gentle with each other and trust our hearts.
Mark, thanks so much for those words. Those are perfect words. Kiana, how about you? Any parting words or that you have words of advice or thoughts?
Yeah, I would say right now, I love what you just said, Mark. And it's true right now, a bit of a daily ritual and a routine and following the rhythm. I mean, just following the rhythm of nature, following the rhythm of the time that we're in, which is bringing us all inward to unite as families in our houses. And just just as parents, my wisdom to you would be, like Mark said, we know our children best. So trust your gut. It's a time now to rely on your gut knowing. I find any time that I experience any anxiety these days, I'm asking myself, am I in the right time? Is this where I'm meant to be putting my energy? If I'm on, say, one of my devices and I'm reading something and I'm getting involved in something and I'm starting to feel a bit anxious, that's my sort of inner alarm to say, this is not where you're meant to be putting your energy right now. And I put it down, I turn it off, and Ishtiak and I go out for a walk. And when we go out for a walk, we don't take the phone with us. I don't care what time it is. We're going out for the walk and we're going to enjoy the walk as long as the walk takes us, which is exactly where we're going to go right now. As soon as we're done this interview, we're going out. It's a beautiful sunny day in Ottawa, and we're going to go and see what's happening along the river today. Thank you, Rajam.
And you can let the walk you then.
The walk will walk us, absolutely. And maybe a few ducks.
Well, I just want to thank you both for sharing your expertise and your knowledge and your heart today, and spending this time with us. So thank you both for joining me here on the Daily Jump.
Well, thank you, Rajem, for the opportunity.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Rajam. Nice to connect with you both.
Thanks.